Bonjour everyone and welcome back to Farmers Corners FC, the French football podcast with the accent. Glad to be here for episode 7 now, where we're going to discuss match day number 6 of the French Ligue 1, but also quite a big Farmers focus today on Olympique Lyonnais. And actually I'm going to have a guest on the show today, Sam, who's a Lyon fan who lives in Brisbane here in Australia. So it's going to be a good dose of Australian accent coming for you, talking about Lyon. Today it's going to be a fun segment. You'll hear it after that intro. Match day 6, who ended with Lyon OM last night, the last game of the match day. We're not going to do a farmers market today. I'll do a special episode, I think probably tomorrow or Wednesday, to recap basically the crazy week that has just happened in Ligue 1 for Mercato and I think all around Europe. We're going to talk about each and every club and their Mercato for the whole week. For the whole summer window up until this week. I think there's going to be a few more transfers coming in today. So as soon as it's all done, we'll recap all that on Wednesday. Before we go to our Farmers Focus, a couple of information obviously for the week. Alvaro and Neymar did not get any suspension after investigation on the racist slur, the alleged racist slur that both were accused of, so no suspension for either. And also one of the big news of the week was the draw for European Cups. So in UEFA Champions League, PSG will be facing Manchester United, the RB Leipzig, and Başakşehir. Manchester United, who just recruited Cavani, it's going to be interesting for PSG. And PSG and Man U, last time they faced in Champions League was in 2019. In the round of 16, Paris had won 2-0 in Old Trafford, but then managed to lose 3-1 at home and got out of the round of 16 in 2019. So not the best souvenirs for Paris. Obviously, Leipzig will be the rematch of this year's semi-final. And Başakşehir will be a new one for Paris. In Marseille, their group is Porto, Manchester City, and Olympiacos. Again, a few former Marseille players there. Benjamin Mendy plays at Manchester City and Valbuena plays for Olympiacos. Valbuena said that he was very happy to come back to play at the Velodrome, but last time he played, when he was playing for Lyon, there was some death threats and things like that. So let's see how he's hosted this time at the stadium. Porto is going to be a bit of a special game for Marseille because André Villas-Boas, the coach, and his assistant coach Ricardo Carvalho are big Porto fans. So he was almost overexcited to play against Porto, but also sad that he would have to beat the team that he loves. Interestingly, in that group, 3 Portuguese coach. Sergio Conceição is the coach at Porto. AVB obviously for OM, and Pedro Martins is the Olympiacos coach, all of them against Guardiola at Manchester City. Rennes in their group will face Chelsea, Sevilla and Krasnodar. Interesting that Chelsea, who just bought Edouard Mendy from Rennes, is going to play against them now. And in Krasnodar we have Rémi Cabella, the former Ligue 1 player, who's going to go back to play in France. And Rennes, when they face Sevilla, have a player who knows what's going on, Nzonzi, who used to play for Sevilla, who is a 6-time Europa League winner and the current title holder. It's not going to be easy for Rennes, OM, or Paris for that matter. It's going to be very interesting Champions League groups. In Europa League, Lille and Nice were involved. Lille with a tough group, Milan AC, Celtic Glasgow and Sparta Prague. Not going to be easy for Lille. And Nice with Bayer Leverkusen, Beersheva, the Hapoel Beersheva from Israel, and the Slavia Prague. So that's the groups that the French teams are going to be in. The first games are the week of the 20th of October. So right now we have the international break, then one match day in Ligue 1, and then the European competition start. And the real one game every 3 days will start for all those teams at once. Okay, so we're going to start this pod now. Farmers Focus first with Sam. Just before that, music. So the farmer focus today is on Olympique Lyonnais, and to talk about Lyon today, I have Sam from Brisbane, an Australian Lyon fan. Thanks for being with us, Sam.
No dramas, Jeremy. It's nice to be on.
Yeah, for sure. Sam, remind me what your Twitter handle is.
Oh, yes, it's at OzOL. So that's OZOL 1950. Very fitting for Lyon. And that's on Twitter. So, yeah, OzOL 1950.
Anyone listening on Twitter, just get on that. It's a very, very, very funny Twitter account. Sam, thanks so much for being part of today's pod. Before we jump into this morning game between Lyon and OM, and before we talk about anything Lyon since the beginning of the season, do you want to quickly introduce yourself? How long have you been an OL fan? And I believe you also have another podcast that you're entertained with a few Lyon fans from around the world.
Yeah. I've been an OL supporter for a little while. It's been on and off. It started with a kind of a funny, it's probably not very exciting, but just from playing FIFA as a kid, just learning about Lyon, and I liked the French national team from the '98 World Cup. So then when I started playing FIFA, beginning of high school, I think it was, I wanted to be the best club in France. So typical plastic foreign supporter. I chose Lyon, who were the best, and just kind of stuck. And then I guess it was it's hard to pick exactly when. I was about 2012-13 season, or the 13-14 season. Around then I started following it more closely, which started off with just following the match commentaries just on a website, and then it moved on from actually streaming matches, and now I still wake up early in the morning in bed and put the match on my phone and start streaming away. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and and we have a podcast for English speaking Lyon fans, which we do across 3 different time zones, which is very interesting. It's a bit of a challenge, but it's really cool. And I think that's something that makes us fairly unique. We've got a couple of girls in Washington, and we've got another guy in Malta, and then it's me in Australia in Brisbane. So yeah, we team together and try and talk about Lyon as positively as is possible, which is pretty hard. So it's good. Yeah, so that's LyonOffside.com, and we've got a podcast that we try and keep as regular as possible to about every fortnight, just as we can, as best as we can get together.
So it's both writing on LyonOffside.com, and also you guys have the podcast. That's really cool.
Yeah, so we have some blog posts. We all chip in. We've been a little bit, I've been definitely a bit slack with the writing for a while. I'm one of those guys that likes to write positive. I've had a hiatus for a long time. But the other guys have some great articles there. We've got some great articles about the women's team. If anyone's interested, go check it out. It's there's plenty there to see.
Yeah, definitely go and check it out whether you like Lyon or not. It's still very good content, and like you say, both about the OL women's team, which actually, if anything, is the reference in the world now with all their the way they expand and obviously the way they dominate European football. OL reign in Seattle, etc. I think the women's game really can thank Lyon for what they've been doing for it. Let's talk about the less fun things. Let's talk about this morning's game. All right, Lyon against OM at the Groupama Stadium. I was about to say Stade de Gerland. At the Groupama Stadium, 1-1.
Not for a while.
But yeah, all right. Payet scored first. Really against the grain of the game, and then Aouar equalized on penalty. All that in that first half. At the end of the game, the stats: 67% possession for Lyon, 24 shots, only 3 on target. My favorite stat when it comes to Lyon: 48 crosses, for only 3 shots on target. What a game. The context, obviously, we're right in the mercato, and a lot have happened in the past few days. And I guess the few things that we heard just before the game is Garcia saying that the reason why Memphis wasn't playing is because Memphis might go tomorrow. And also supposedly the starting lineup was only given to the team 2 hours before the game started. Talk to me about that starting lineup, Sam.
Yeah. So where to begin? I think this whole beginning of the season has been very destabilized and very It's been hard to exactly put your finger on what Lyon has been wanting to do since that Champions League run and in preparation for this season. There's obviously been no clear plan, I think, which has come about as a result of really not knowing for sure who's going, who's coming, and I think that prolonged process and a lack of definitive action, I'd say, from the management of the club has led to this ongoing, drawn out, I guess, confusing time for both players and fans. And as a result, the staff look as equally confused and lost as everyone. And I think it's just a massive mess of combined confusion.
Yeah,
if I can tag that.
And Garcia sort of said it right 3-4 weeks ago, whether he was trying to sort of leave a door open for himself but he said, it's hard to start the season when you know that comes October 5th, you might have a completely different team.
Definitely.
Yeah, whether it's an excuse or not. He did use that as a way to say, hey, I don't know what's going to happen. But with this morning's game, this week or last week, I should say, Garcia after the game said, I want the players that are going to play against Marseille to be the one that are not going to be transferred. I want to know on Wednesday that nothing is going to change so I can get my game ready, blah, 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 blah. So he got that because Aouar confirmed on Friday, I think, that he was not going to get transferred, and then maybe Memphis was the only one. But despite all this, I mean, the starting 11 was like a 4-2-3-1, which I think is the first time Lyon plays 4-2-3-1. And that front three, Cornet, Kalewere, and Toko Ekambi, what did you think when you read that this morning?
I felt immediate rage, immediate despair, and a combination of tiredness and alertness at the same time, mixing together in a cauldron of fire. No,
you felt good.
Yeah. No, seriously, it was. I was actually quite shocked to see that formation. Firstly, like to go to the Memphis Depay, what Garcia was saying about that. Like, I don't want to give him more excuses than he already seems to find. But there is an element to what he was saying. I do agree that there has been that prolonged. So I don't think he's wrong there. But that's where the Rudy excuses stop for me, I think. It's been clear before that his lack of tactics and a lack of, I guess, that implementation, what does he bring to the team? Like when we saw Silvinho leave, if we want to go back all that time, Silvinho left and Garcia, the thing that Garcia changed from Silvinho was Silvinho drastically tried to implement a new game plan, tactics, everything. And he probably didn't have the right players in hindsight to do what he had wanted and what they had thought. We kind of got a bit of a bum steer, to coin a Australian term, with some of the recruits that we got from the departed Florian Maurice. But so Garcia's really when he stepped in, he just really put the best players on the pitch in their best position, and we got an immediate improvement in results. However, it was we very soonly realized that there wasn't much else to his ideas, and that was it. Yeah, and I think we're still seeing that now, where now he doesn't know who the best players, and he can't put the best players on the pitch. because they haven't known where they're going to be. Their heads haven't been in the game, I would say. Maybe it's shown in training. I'm not too sure, but this match this morning was just like a accumulation of his lineup. Like, I think Rudy got this match wrong with, like, as you said, Cornet, Toko Ekambi, Cadeware. It was completely wrong. It was everything from the squad to the formation to all of it. It was just messy, very messy. Like, to drop Guimaraes for Mendes, and Mendes was a liability throughout most of the match. And I think we've seen in the past that if you do want to play Mendes and Guimaraes actually make a good team. But then why would you drop Lyon's best player in Cacare? Mm-hmm. So,
when that happened.
It's just, very, very strange. And if you wanted more midfield stability, why wouldn't you play the three of them together in a 4-3-3? There's just lots of things. Like, I would understand if he chose Mendes to try and bolster the midfield, to be a little bit more balanced defensively, then why would you, but then you're sacrificing a technical player in midfield for we haven't seen anything from Cornet, Toko Ekambi, or Cadeware up front. So you're really sacrificing technical players for other players, where it's just very confusing.
I'm trying to see. It's interesting to hear the Lyon fan point of view. I'm trying to see it from why those decisions and why so late as well. So maybe he wants to keep the whole group concerned and focused, I should say. So 2 hours before, he doesn't say who's going to play, and then 2 hours before he goes, okay, you guys are playing. And maybe the surprise for the for Kadewere and Cornet and Toko Ekambi to start, maybe he was hoping that they give them the boost. Same for Thiago Mendes. Thiago Mendes, unfortunately, as an OM fan, I don't like him, because when he was with Lille, he was always great against Marseille.
Yeah.
So I think he's a good player who just hasn't done well in Lyon.
Yes.
But I'm thinking, is that what he tried to do? And to be fair, although I can't agree more with everything you say about Garcia, I thought Lyon this morning, that first half, was really good, except the last 15 minutes. I thought that besides the goal, the way that they just prevented Marseille from getting the ball out, which, to be fair, Marseille isn't very inspired early this season, but the total press, the fact that they were always able to find the wings, always able to find Bar, who was very good defensively against Thauvin, and Dubois on the other side. Then the problem is the quality of the actual crosses. But the fact that they were always able to find that was good. The problem in my mind is underusing Cacare and Aouar and not doing through the midfield. I know that may be where the strength lies for Marseille as well, but that's your best players, and that's the players that can make a difference very easily. And mind you, they bring the penalty when Aouar combined with Bar, and then Aouar's goal was denied for a weird reason in the second half. So I was a bit surprised that the ball doesn't go more towards them, and after all those crosses, just find them at the edge of the box. You know what I mean? They can score from any position. Those two, find them. The only time you find Cacare, it was almost a goal if there was not 3 deflections. So I was shocked. But I think for Garcia, the way we've analyzed what he's done in Marseille, and to a degree, we think about it might be a bit the same for André Villas-Boas. He's not a very good tactician. He's more a people's manager. And so you get him in. He's a commando guy. You get him in when the team is completely out of shape mentally and psychologically, and he gives everyone some love, and he puts the group together, and then he makes them bounce back, and it worked really well in Marseille. And when he come in halfway through the year, he slowly build them up, and then the second year we go to the Europa League final. But in Lyon, it looks like that effect worked for a day and a half, and then it was gone. And I think maybe the problem was he's a guy who maybe can do this if everyone believes in him. But what was the reaction of Lyon fan when Garcia gets appointed?
The Lyon fans wanted to riot, to be honest. I wasn't happy, and I think, I don't think there were very many Lyon fans happy because he had spent all his time previously in Ligue 1 at OM, which you would remember, and it's something that, there's not many things that Lyon and Marseille fans can sympathize together, but Rudy Garcia is one that brings us together as two rival fan bases. But he spent his whole time at OM being, our enemy, lots of public tweets and back and forth with Olas and Genesio even. And so then to see him come after Silvinho, it was, massive shock. And I think at the time I was very frustrated with our results under Silvinho. I could at least justify myself in the eyes of the leaders when Garcia came in on a short contract, because he did come in only on a 1-year contract. So I think in my eyes, I thought, if he's no good, which we probably know he won't be, at least he's not going to be here for a long time.
For sure,
and,
you don't get stuck.
And I thought, I can at least even if I didn't agree with the decision, I could at least put myself in the shoes of the decision makers at the club and see with their point of view with that appointment, saying, all right, we'll get this guy in. He's got experience. No, he's not the greatest manager. We know he's not got the greatest record. He's had one good season or a season and a half at OM. He had a good time in Lille years and years ago. Yeah. But, we put him on a short contract. He doesn't like Lyon. We don't like him. But, we can all come together professionally and just get us through this season. Yeah, and kind of get us through a season, and then we'll go on our merry way. And, but obviously the season finished short and Rudy's still here and we're all angry. And
you think maybe if it's not, that beautiful year that we're living, 2020, maybe if it's not the way it is, you reckon he's out during the off season?
So Juninho, and it's been quite public knowledge for a little while actually, that all the staff at OL behind the scenes have only to the end of this season on their contract. And so it seems that if the season hadn't finished short, Garcia may well have been extended anyway for this season.
Okay.
And gone out with everyone else. I think that seems to be the trend. Everyone's thinking that there will be a big staff overhaul come the end of this season.
Even Juninho?
Not Juninho.
Oh, everyone but Juninho, sorry.
Yeah, so everyone under Juninho. So I think that's the assistant manager, Batical, or assistant trainer, one of them. It's very messy because I think Garcia brought his own assistants. I think he brought a couple of his own assistants.
Yeah, always does.
Yeah, I think I don't know how to say his name. It's Fisho. I'm not sure. I don't speak. Yeah, and so I think there's him and Batical, and I think everyone under Juninho is up at the end of this season. Yeah,
because right now the hierarchy, obviously Olas is all the way up there, and then Juninho is in charge of the football. Excuse me. Cheroux is in charge of recruitment, and Garcia is the head coach, and it sort of looks like when Olas put Juninho in, Olas was ready to step back, but it looks like when he brought in Garcia, and with all the backlash that he had from it, it looks like Olas had to jump back in completely because Juninho and Garcia didn't get along. Do I get that feeling right?
Yes, I think that's very accurate. It's funny when you mentioned the hierarchy. The hierarchy in the public eye, I think, is very different from the hierarchy behind the scenes, because it's very interesting. Because when Juninho was appointed, like you said, it's officially, if you were to look on the club's website, it would say Olas is the president, Juninho is the director of sports, Cheroux is the head of recruitment, Garcia is the manager. But we see now that since in the recruiting of Garcia as manager, we saw Gerard Houllier, who who's an advisor to all us, who doesn't really have a defined role at the club. We also see the club's lawyer, Vincent Ponson, more and more now in taking in press conferences and being mentioned in interviews and things like that. So I get the feeling that these two guys who have been at the club for a while are the ones that, with all us, are the ones that look after, are kind of like the babysitters, I think. I'm not sure how much power Juninho actually has. I think he is also sort of seen as a public figure, a kind of, he's a child of the club, kind of.
Yeah, he's the golden child in Lyon.
Yeah, he's like an adopted child of the club. He didn't come through the academy, but he's, a legend. So I think he has that face, and I like the idea of him there, even if he hasn't got the experience. And I think the lack of experience is showing a little bit. I have serious doubts as to how much power he is actually given. And I know he cops a lot of flack for, he takes a lot of responsibility from pundits and journos. And I think that's rightfully so. I think because he is the sporting director and he's in charge of the sports results. But I think if we look deeper into it a little bit more, and with a little bit more of that conspiracy tinfoil hat, you can kind of pick apart the hierarchy and say, well, just how much power is Juninho having? How much influence does he have? Aulas is renowned for being quite a strong leader, and he's been very successful. So to see someone that powerful and successful to relinquish some of the power so quickly to someone that's so inexperienced is very, very, very rare. Like you wouldn't see that very often. So that's where my doubts come. And when we start seeing the names of Julia and Ponsant being mentioned,
sounds very undermining for.
Yeah, I think so. So perhaps we'll wait and see, like at the end of this season, when a lot of the staff, if the staff are let go and which staff stay. But it'll be interesting to see how much power is given to Juninho, because I think he does have a good footballing mind and a good direction. And I do think he has his best interests at heart. And I think he will be able to implement something to the team. It's just whether he's allowed to and whether he's supported. And
it does look like a lose-lose situation for him, because his lack of experience, basically if something goes wrong, it's going to be his fault. And if something goes right, it almost looks like it's because Uye was here to advise, or because Garcia is such a good coach, which is not the case, but whichever coach would have come
that's right.
It does look like he's the putting a young sporting director like this with little experience. I'm always a little bit thinking that there's no way he can't work in a club like Lyon or Marseille or Paris, or those big clubs with big expectations, because you don't actually want to give them the time to build. Because I thought what he did last year when he came in, I thought that was like, oh wow, he's got power, because he brings Silvinho in, and like you say, Silvinho comes in with an actual plan, and almost looked like he was, this season might not work, but we are actually right now implementing a system that we are going to play in first grade, that our academy is going to learn to play, and in a year, maybe two, we're going to go back to where we were in the 2000s. But then all of a sudden it was act, and then you put the worst coach to follow an actual plan with Garcia.
Yes, that's right.
So it'll be interesting to see what's the end of the year like. What do you think we can expect as far as the mercato go for Lyon, and what happened in the last few days?
Well, it's been an interesting mercato. Am I saying it right? Mercato or mercato?
Mercato. Let's call it the farmers market. Here I call it the farmers market.
The farmers market. Yeah, well, let's call it the farmers market. We can, what to expect from Lyon. I think I was always a little bit pessimistic of the Aouar's transfer to Arsenal. I think Aulas is at fault mainly for being a little bit too brash with his communications earlier on before the farmers market, as we coin, opened. I think, he kind of seemed to publicly pimp out our kind of to big clubs, trying to say, hey, come and get him, which I'm not sure if that was his intention or whether he was just speaking, just out of ego or what it was. But I think when Our had some clear admirers and some clubs that I thought I could see him going to, like City or Juventus.
For sure.
But I think once they weren't going for him, I felt much more safe. And when the Arsenal reports came in, I wasn't too sure how interested he would be. Just by knowing Our and the type of guy he is, an academy guy, he's always been quite very warm, even for an academy player. He's been very warm to the club. So I've it's a little bit like Tolisso when Tolisso was being courted, started to be courted. He could have easily gone, but I think it was Napoli, but he decided to stay. And I think it's a similar situation. Our still got 3 years of contract left. At the end of this season, he'll have 2 years.
And he's not going to be that much lower.
No, that's right. And, he'll be selected for France as well. So I think it's a smart move, even if Lyon are absolutely terrible at the moment. And I think, to go into a big club again. And we have to, I don't want to be too harsh on him, but for all his talent, I don't think Lyon has benefited from the best hour yet. I don't think we've seen him. I don't think we've seen him hit the levels that he should be hitting consistently at the club. A lot of the time he has great matches and then or a great half, and then he'll disappear. A little bit like this morning's match.
Yeah, true.
So I think his first half, I thought he was incredible. He was everywhere. He was threatening with every carry of the ball. I think he nutmegged 2 Marseille players in one. Almost one dribble. And so it's lots of it just shows that when he's switched on, but again, he's a young player that's inconsistent. And so I think going to a big club abroad, there would be an extra motivation for him to be consistent. But I think we see a lot of the time if it doesn't work out straight away, there's a lot of pressure that builds very quickly. And I think it's important for him, if he was to stay this year, to really knuckle down and try and bring that consistency to his game if he wants to move to a bigger club, into a bigger competition like Arsenal and like the Premier League.
Yeah, and I'd say the Euro 21 hopefully definitely waiting on his mind, because like you say, you go to a big club and you have 2 bad games, whether it's City, Juventus or Arsenal, you're not going to play again.
That's right. Yeah.
You're not coming into the most comfortable setting to start with. You got to adapt to a new country and all that. And then, if he doesn't work out, you're not playing again. If you don't play, you're not going to go back to French national team. So I think for that alone, him staying in Lyon is a good idea. And I do think, whether Garcia stays or not, but I do think that with the addition of Paqueta and whoever might come tomorrow, because apparently tomorrow or later today.
Deschilio.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm expecting a name that we haven't heard yet that might come to Lyon. I wouldn't be surprised if there's something going on behind the scene, especially if Memphis does leave. I think with the addition of Paqueta and potentially a winger, I think Lyon has probably one of the best team in France on paper. The bench this morning is the best bench
the bench
in the league.
This morning was
That's crazy.
The bench on this morning was better than the 11 on the field.
but I think when Guimares, Mendes, Aouar, Kakere, Paqueta, which already is 20 midfielder for what you need. But anyway, when all these guys actually come together and actually make it to play, I think you're unstoppable. And I think Aouar will then go to the level that he's supposed to be. This morning in the second half, you see him getting frustrated because no one's actually reading the game like he does, and at the end of the passes that he gives. When he's there, he's going to be
Yeah, that's right. And it's very interesting, like you see, like in this match, I think in our squad, as we were mentioning, there is a large number of players who have the level to take Lyon very far. And then I think there is a very big void between the quality of the best players and the quality of the fringe players. I think there's a massive discrepancy in the level. Like if you were to see, like there's a massive lack of wingers in the team and a lot of central strikers. There's a lot of really talented midfielders. Like I think that the Lyon midfield is one of the best midfields I think in
Champions League
a
level.
lot. Yeah, exactly. And a lot of the teams across Europe, like the depth, even I think he gets ragged on a lot, Gianluca.
Yeah, for sure as well.
But
Yeah, I forgot about
every
it.
time he's played, I think he's
He's a
got
kid
4
still.
goals in. I think he's got 4 goals already, and he's at one point I think he was scoring every 60 minutes or something like that, or so, and yeah, he was only brought in to be a player for the future. Juninho brought him in and said, "Oh, he's a player for the future," but he soon turned out that he had the level to really be a quality sub. And then if you think he can't get play time, there's also ahead of him Cacré and Guimaraes and Awa and Mendes, who has been a little bit iffy, but yeah, Shirky and Jeffrey and Adelaide, which we don't really want to mention right now. And but yeah, so the midfield is packed, and then you go to defense, which is the defense is quite. It's as I think on a whole is probably a pass mark. There's some issues with fullbacks, but yeah. So I think the squad is a little bit imbalanced, but the quality in attack is quite lacking, and I think we might see an improvement there if Memphis goes. But it's weird for Memphis at the moment. I was curious by Garcia saying what he did, because for the record, it's been reported that Barcelona haven't made any offers. There haven't been any offers for Memphis, so it's very weird for him to, like there was reports that Memphis was disappointed that he hasn't been able to move to Barcelona.
And he only wanted Barcelona, didn't he?
Yeah, so I think he was approached by Milan. I think it's the second season now that Milan have tried to approach him with no success. And I think Lyon would have gladly let him go if he had chose to go, but so I haven't really been, I think, getting worked up about any of the reports in the media about Memphis and his attitude. I don't really believe it too much, buy into it too much. But it was interesting that Rudy was still apprehensive as to whether Memphis was going to stay or not. So whether there are some offers that have come, before the match, whether there has been talks, whether the player himself has said, I don't really want to stay here.
Yeah, if the player says, hey, I might still go, don't play me so I'm not injured. That's the only thing I can think of. Well,
that's right.
Not in an imposing way, but in like a two professionals talking to each other and agreeing that something might happen. So I would rather not play the whole game.
Yeah. So there may have been some words that Barcelona are waiting for someone to leave, like maybe an Ousmane Dembele type deal. And they're waiting for a green light, because I think apparently they haven't got a green light to make transfers, or who knows. Yeah. There's got so many rumors, but yeah, I think, it's just a very strange situation. And so for Memphis to be disappointed without having any offers is a bit strange. And but then, yeah, so interesting to see. But I think Lyon is drastically in need of wingers. There's a failed move for I don't know how to say his name, but for Pelistri.
Oh yeah, Pelistri, yeah.
Yeah, so that was a bit of I think the transfer of him has been a bit of that is a negative, I think, on Juninho. I think we showed a little bit of amateurism with trying to negotiate the cheapest deal possible. And I think it's a little bit naive to think that you can muscle your way into these small South American clubs just alone and doing their heels in with these deals because they know they can they want to maximize as much money that they can. So we've seen it, we've experienced it before at OL, and I'm sure OM have as well. So, like we had it with Mamana before as well. And Roger Martinez, who was a Colombian that never came. This is a similar instance where we didn't want to pay a release clause, and we wanted to offer money under it, and the club dug their heels in and made it difficult for us. And that's a bit like what we've seen here as well. So
yeah, and for anyone listening who doesn't know who Pelistri is that Uruguayan young player. Is 18 years old and he plays in Penarol. And yeah, I think the offer from Lyon was like 8 or 9 million with,
I think, yeah,
15%.
With a 40%. Yes,
40%,
yeah.
Sorry.
I think it was 5 million plus 2 million add-ons, with a 40% resale.
And then instead of that, Manchester United came in and said the release clause is 10.5 million. I'm going to put 10.5 million down, and he's set to sign with Man U right now.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So
crazy.
Very interesting. Very quickly, it just goes to show that obviously, I'm not a sports director or in recruiting, so it's hard to know how these deals go. But I would imagine so off a very first phone call or email that you would know the club's position on their player. So for Manchester United to come in and very quickly realise that, it's not going to happen under the release clause, and if they don't want to release their player so quickly, and you want to force that, that's the way to go. So they obviously showed much more experience in that.
And it's a cheap release clause. It's not like you're looking at
that's right.
A player that might be worth 10 and the release clause is at 30. It was just
that's
a few
right.
minutes more.
And I think Lyon's strategy was to pay less now in the potential of swaying them, Penarol, to be able to recoup more funds later down the track if there is a resale. But so I understand the Lyon's position, but I think the way it was drawn out, the way that we had approached it, like offering lots of small little increases to the transfer fee and adding bonuses and add-ons, I think he wasn't an expensive player. If we really, really saw something special in him, that we should have probably from the start have targeted him a little bit more aggressively, considering now we're left with no wingers. And even if you want to delve deeply into the Lyon Academy as well, there aren't a lot of young natural wingers coming through the club that are ready to push into this first team. So it is a bit of a problem position for the club.
That's also, I think, what's weird in this Mercato, because if you look at the power of the academy, which we know that Lyon is best or maybe second best behind Rennes as far as academy goes in France, and probably in the last 10, 15 years, 20 years, let's say, one of the top academies in Europe. If you look at the talent coming up, the players that we've seen playing in first division, you're wondering why you're going to buy Paqueta for 20 million when you have Kakere coming up, when you have Gianluca, when you have Cherki, even if he plays a little bit higher up the pitch. Why you're going to spend that money on Paqueta if you're not selling Aouar?
Yeah, that's
and
right.
You have all those guys behind, because the other issue that started this farmers market in Lyon was the Guiri episode sold to Nice, who is a winger in the sense of a winger in the sense of what Thauvin is for Marseille, the guy that you put on the left wing and who's just to pass the ball as he is to actually cut back and try and score. So I think from the beginning it was I'm not going to say a bad situation for Lyon, but bets that didn't pay off. Toko Ekambi, which then it looks like you're sort of forced to make him play because you spend money on him anyway.
That's right.
So you sort of have to justify your purchase, and then add to that. I think luck is such a big part of the game, regardless of what everyone says.
Yes, that's right.
The lack of luck and that famous. I was waiting for Marseille to score the goal at the end.
Yes,
and I was going to tweet something like expected goals for Lyon 465 and they scored 1. Expected goal for Marseille 0.01 and they scored 2. I think you guys are definitely unlucky up front. Dembele seems a little bit out of confidence. Depay, we thought that the 3 goals on the first game was going to put him into shape, but it obviously didn't work out.
No.
I think you definitely should have better results than what you had since the beginning of the season.
Yeah, I agree. I think luck has played into a lot of it because if you are a mathematician and you pay a lot of attention to the XGs, you'd realize that with an XG that high, surely there would be at least some fortuitous goals and lucky goals being ricocheted in, those scrappy goals. Lyon should be scoring with the amount of possession, the amount of presence in our opposition's final thirds that we've been having. You would expect there to be much more, luck going in, with the amount of shots, the amount of balls literally being in that box. At some point, you'd think they have to cross the line.
Yeah.
But they just never seem to. So it's, I think it also has a lot to do with the quality of the quality of the service going into the strikers and the attackers. I think as well as Dembele is probably the other attackers that are around Memphis and Dembele are a little bit undercooked. I don't think they've really got the level or the time to really, and the tactics to really develop and really prosper. So,
and to go back to what you were saying earlier, you said Garcia came in and played the best player at their best position. I think right now the way the team played, whether it's Garcia's plan or it just happened, that multitude of crosses coming in, it's a great tactic to have when you have Edinson Cavani, Didier Drogba, whoever is tall and can take on the Chaleta Charles or whatever.
They can score with their knee, those guys.
Exactly, where they're always going either go in front of someone, or if the ball goes in the air into 50-50 chance, they're going to have the 51% chance to actually put it in, which is not Depay and not Dembele. So if you got those two guys up front, in my mind, it's like, stop trying to do what you're doing. If you use the width of the pitch, which is a good idea, find a way to always bring the ball on the floor when you're going to try and look for those guys. And that's where I think that's the only limit to that luck, where I'm like, sure enough, they should have had lucky touches, on goals going in for Lyon because of how many times they bring the ball to the box. But at the end of the day, if the guy in the box is not taller than the defender, stop putting the ball in the air.
Exactly. And I think in the past, Lyon, when we had Lacazette as our main striker, we would never cross Eric in the air because that wasn't his strong point. We would always throw balls to his feet. And there were some times when teams would figure out that if you can shut down Lacazette, as prolific as he was, if you could shut him down, if you could block the service to his feet and not give him the space to move into and, really crowd him out, you really limited OL's attacking threat. Now we're seeing that the amount of balls coming in, they're just wasted crosses. They're just crosses for the sake of crossing because that's literally the only option that the guys have when they're in crossing positions. It's whether it's Dubois or Cornet as a left back or even Bar. There's no implementation. There's no tactic for crosses. There's no one to say, hey, we're not scoring headers. We're not being able to threaten from our crosses. So when we get into these positions, why isn't there someone offering a solution? Everyone kind of jumps into the box when someone gets into a crossing position, and then the cross lands in row P, Z33, and and it's like, what are all those guys doing in the box then? If Dubois is only going to hit one of his 60 crosses into the area, then give him an alternative. Same with Cornet. If Cornet's not going to be able to land any of his crosses in the field, give him an alternative. And I think there's not enough of that tactical rigor that's required to offer solutions in attacking phases. And the players themselves, I don't think, have necessarily they're not, like you were saying, the superstars and the caliber of players that can do it themselves. Maybe Memphis is the only one that has that ability, but it's not enough. It's not enough to have only one player as that. And even, we see, there's even at OM, there's at least, from an outside onlooker, I can see that Payet, Torvan, and those two alone at least have an understanding of when they do get an attacking option or when they do get into a position to attack or get into a phase where they seem to know what they're doing, even if it may be limited and the tactic may not be there, like you were saying. They at least know the strengths of those around them. And even if Benedetto is struggling, you don't see Torvan run to the byline or run to the corner post, turn his man, and then throw in a cross to Benedetto in the area. He'll hold the ball up and wait for a better option, or he'll do something else. And I think there's a severe lack of intelligence in the attacking phases for OL.
Yeah, and I think I guess to give an excuse to your team, Marseille has been playing together for a year now, but that said, Tovan just got in after a year of being injured. So yeah, it's definitely a bit of lacking that. Do you think that what is it, 2 weeks without playing now, a bit less, 10 days without playing? Do you think that comes at the right moment for Lyon? And do you think Garcia might go during those 10 days?
I think Garcia will definitely be gone. I think he's only 1 point worse than Silvino. Yeah, I think he's only 1 point worse than Silvino in the same amount of matches. And when you look at the teams we've had quite an easy draw so far up until OM. So
you come back. You're going to Strasbourg, then you're playing Monaco and Lille.
So I think Strasbourg is I think if we had our time, it would be nice to play Strasbourg before the international break and hope to try and get a win. But I think coming back from that international break, Strasbourg becomes a must-win. They're not in great form.
Monaco, Lille, and St-Etienne.
Yeah, and that's a baptismal fire. So Monaco, we've not that we're rivals or anything like that, but Lyon like to beat Monaco. And Lille, we have a terrible record against Lille. To get anything from that, and then St-Etienne is just a bloodbath.
Yeah, at least it's at Lyon, but yeah, both teams are really doing good right now.
Yeah, that's right.
Just because I'm reading that while I talk to you, Juninho said that Memphis did agree with Barcelona already. But they're waiting for Barcelona to make an offer to Lyon.
Right. Okay. That would make sense then. Yeah.
Yeah. And then apparently Jeff Renadelaide will most likely stay unless something comes up tomorrow.
Surprise.
That's the latest there. I guess just to maybe finish our farmers focus on Lyon. That was a very, very good chat to have with you, Sam. What do you think OL fans can expect from the rest of the season, regardless of if Garcia comes in? I'm a genuinely optimistic person, so I'm always like, you just tweak this and you can make it happen. What do you think can or need to change? Maybe you're going to just say Garcia for things to work out better.
So it's hard to predict what's going to happen. I think the club's in an interesting position. One of our guys for Lyon Offside, Nick, wrote a great article about the future of Rudy Garcia, so you should definitely go and check that out. But I think the club is at a very difficult point now where they need to decide whether Garcia stays or not. I think that everything is balancing on where he's at. I think it's very hard. There's almost no chance of getting a replacement in from outside the club to replace him for the remainder of the season. That's going to be effective unless you can find someone that's going to stay for 7 months, which I'm not too sure is possible. So it would most likely be a promotion from within, maybe Gerard Badical or Juninho.
Yeah.
But I think if Garcia stays, I think the team realistically will get a little bit better. I think just on the quality of the team itself and the lack of quality in some of the other teams. I think if Lyon can just hang in there, and even if it happens to be mid-table, I think the best thing that can happen for OL is to try and get these young players coming through, get them accustomed to the team, get them integrated, and get them ready for a potential revamp and a kind of renovation for the next season. I think that's really probably what we're looking at. I think it's maybe a little bit, I mean, it's not all over. The Ligue 1 season has been there's no real outliners yet except for PSG and Rennes. Yeah, so I think anything's possible now. Like if Lyon come out of this international break with a series of wins, this opening set of matches will be quickly forgotten. But I can't see that happening. I think things will stay the way they have been under Rudy Garcia. A lot of inconsistency, some victories here and there. The thing that's remaining is that Lyon aren't conceding a lot of goals, and I don't really want to jinx us now, but it's just, I think if something can click in the offense, I think we can expect things to happen. I think the Paqueta coming in was to replace Jeffrey and Adelaide. Okay. And I think he was brought in to compensate for a potential departure of either Aouar or Adelaide, and that hasn't happened. So it's interesting to see. Yeah, I think there's a winter mercato in December. So yeah. I mean in January. So it'll be interesting to see what happens then. But yeah, I definitely think that there is still something to happen at OL, whether it's in the next few days or in the winter transfer window. But yeah, I think to summarize, I think Lyon will be pretty much the same as we saw last season, inconsistent and probably a mid-table type deal, I guess.
Yes,
that's as optimistic as I can be.
the way I see it, and I guess I'm more optimistic for your club than you are, but I'm thinking that they are going to find their groove eventually, and like every club, I guess in a season, they're going to have a series that's going to work. And I would think that their advantage is that they're not playing any European game, and that season that is supposed to finish early because of Euro 21 as well is going to be so packed full of game for Marseille, Rennes, Lille, Paris, that Lyon can definitely take advantage of that, and I genuinely think we'll take advantage of that. So we'll see how that pans out. But as a Marseille fan, I'm not happy if this happened, but I wouldn't be surprised that if that does happen for sure. Sam, thanks.
No worries.
Thanks for being here for our Farmers Focus. Really appreciate your input. Really appreciate having a Lyon fan coming in. Like I said, follow Sam on Twitter, OZOL1950 on Twitter, and follow as well Lyon Offside. Go on LyonOffside.com for English news about Lyon and listen to that podcast. It's an awesome podcast. A lot of great news, a lot of great information. Thanks for being here this morning, despite Lyon not winning against Marseille. Probably the best outcome for both of us to talk to each other in the morning as well.
Yeah, I enjoyed the chat more than the match.
For sure. And I'm sure we'll get you back on the pod whenever Garcia leaves the club.
Yes, anytime. I'll love it.
Thank you again for listening to that Farmers Focus, and thank you, Sam, really for coming on the show and having that great conversation. Quite the lengthy chat, but I think we had a very good time talking to each other about Lyon right there. And as you could hear, a lot going on in Lyon, the former best team in France just 10 years ago, and now are definitely in rebuilding mode. We are going to talk about match day number 6 now. Quickly, the results of the weekend. Paris Saint-Germain opened the match day with a 6-1 very dominating win against Angers. Lens beat St-Etienne 2-0. Nice beat Nantes 2-1. Montpellier lost home against Nimes 1-0. Strasbourg lost home against Lille 3-0. That's the 2 away wins of the weekend. Then Brest won 1-0 against Monaco. Bordeaux won 3-0 against Dijon. Metz won 3-1 against Lorient. And the 2 only draw to finish the match day. Rennes 2-2 against Reims. And Lyon 1-1 against Marseille that we've just discussed with Sam. Let's start with Paris Saint-Germain against SCO d'Angers. So Paris Saint-Germain with a dominating win, 6-1. The goal scorer Florenzi at the 7th minute, Neymar at the 36th and 47. Then Traoré for Angers scored at the 53rd minute. The captain from Angers scoring his 3rd goal there. And after that, 3 more goals for Paris Saint-Germain. Draxler at the 57th, Ganagay at the 71st, and Kylian Mbappé at the 80th. Fourth, Paris Saint-Germain with 57% of the possession at home, which is not a lot from PSG standards. 18 shots, 12 on target, and 8 shots, only 2 on target for Angers. Paris really dominated the game and kept most of the possession, at least early on. Angers really parked the bus and came out only after conceding the first couple of goals. They really tried to keep the ball a little bit more after they conceded Angers, but they just didn't defend really well. A lot of opportunity for Paris, and if it wasn't for Bernardoni or for Paris, I guess, lack of lethal opportunities up there, the score would have been definitely worse than that. When Neymar scored early in that second half, it looked like the game was done, but when Angers actually reduced the score at the 53rd minute, a minute or 2 later, they have another opportunity which was saved by Kipembe, which could have totally sort of relaunched the game. I think Paris then made the most of the few opportunities they had, or the few times they could reach the box. And the score, the 6-1 score, although it looks that big, seems a little bit severe for Angers. I don't think they deserved that much of a gap. If you look at the expected goal statistic, for example, it was 215 for Paris and they scored 6, and it was 114 for Angers and they scored 1. So that was what we expect. I think, even though Paris won 6-1, I think people were somewhat disappointed in their performance. I think it showed a lot of time Angers was actually able to play in the midfield, Fulgini and Capel together, did a bit of damage in that area, and I think we definitely hold Paris to a higher standard, rightfully so. They just made it to the final of the UEFA Champions League, and whenever we see them playing, we thinking, what's going to happen against Bayern or against Man City or against Man United, and something that's so obvious is that in the midfield, they miss on one end that very strong midfielder, what they had with Thiago Motta back then, that they thought they were going to get with Gay, but didn't work. It looked like they really missed that. And also, if you have Verratti, Neymar playing in the same game, and Di Maria wasn't here today because he was the first of his 4-game ban, there's just a lot of slowing the game and a lot of holding the ball instead of making the ball live. And we see a little bit of that against Angers, and it's things that we would like Paris to improve on before they're going to have to play again those bigger players. As far as Angers go, Moulin, the coach, did say that he found the result a little bit severe, and he was regretting the moment where they missed that opportunity to come back to 3-2. And PSG score on the really next counter-attack, so Angers' hope were sort of over by that time. The coach Moulin was quite happy with how the team developed offensively, but recognized that obviously Paris was the better team. He was a bit emotional in his post-game conference because Ait Nouri, their left back, is most likely signing in another club today. He didn't say which club he was going to be, but he's losing a kid that he really believed in. I think it's to note that even though Bernardoni conceded 6 goals, he was actually pretty decent on his line and saved a few chances, and most of the goals definitely not his fault. To finish on this game, I think a little bit of weirdness coming from Paris. I guess Leonardo gave the post-game conference and instead of Tuchel, and Leonardo basically made the whole post-game conference about Thomas Tuchel. He said that he was not happy with what Tuchel said in the pre-game conference, where he complained about the mercato and losing players, without being consulted. And Leo basically said that he didn't like Tuchel words, that the club didn't like Tuchel words, and he declared that if Tuchel wants to stay, he needs to accept the internal policy and the decisions that are taken by the board, which showed a little bit of feistiness between the two and in the leadership of PSG. Obviously, after that, 2 recruits came for Paris, Danilo Pereira and Moise Kean. So we'll see what happens after the international break. Paris Saint-Germain will go to Nimes after the break, so they will go to Nimes on the 16th of October, if I'm not mistaken, and Angers will host Metz. The second game of the match day was Lens against St-Etienne. Lens won 2-0. The goals, Kakuta on penalty again at the 15th minute, and Sotoka at the 81st minute, all the way at the end of the game against St-Etienne. St-Etienne who finished the game with only 9 players on, and Lens, after losing their very first game, are on a very good, interesting streak of 5 games without losing right now, which is really good to see for the newly promoted team. The first red card came at the 15 minutes. That's what get the penalty. Kolo Jeshak, the experienced defender for Saint-Etienne, just a terrible tackle, a terrible challenge on Ganago, and Ganago actually suffered a sprained ankle and came out because of that. Poor Ganago, who's been impressive early this season, 4 goals and earned 3 penalties, so offered basically Kakuta 3 goals. Had to come out injured on this one. The second red card came at the second half for Waid Kazri, who basically just maybe put too much engagement, wanted to do maybe a little bit too good, and went to challenge a defender trying to clear the ball and just throw his whole body at it. A tackle that was a little bit scary live, and I think the red card was definitely deserved on that occasion. Lens with a very, very good start of the season. Like I said, they're now 5 games without losing and 4 victories in there. So 13 points, third on the ladder, and something that definitely is a bit surprising for Lens. St-Etienne had a very good start of the season as well, but I think they may be a little bit too much of a focus on the young player, which is good on one hand, but you have to have an experienced player on each line, and when you don't have that, it's hard to perform. I think we can't really judge St-Etienne on this weekend's game, because losing Fofana during the week on transfer to Leicester City is hard enough. You're going to lose your second experienced centre back on a red card early in the game. It's hard to come back from that, and then when you slowly get back into the game, Kazri then gets a red card. Just makes it almost an impossible game for Les Verts to do anything in there. Lens will maybe regret that they were not able to find the break before the 81st minute and Sotoka goal. Lens, who had 60% possession of the ball and 13 shots, 5 on target, probably wanted to find the opportunities a little bit earlier on, but at the end of the day, a win 2-0 at home against St-Etienne is all good for Lens, who stayed humble after the victory. Hayes, the less experienced coach, I'll say, said that it was all well and done to have 13 points, and it was great, and the objective is to get 40 points and to remain in Ligue 1, but they want to stay humble. The next game after the international break is in Lille, the Derby du Nord, as we call it, and Lens coach said, we got to stay humble, and Lille is the best team potentially in that Ligue 1 this season, so we're just going to go there, play our base game, and hope for something to come up. Saint-Etienne, who will play in Nice after the international break. We'll see what that game is going to do between two teams who are been doubting in the last couple of weeks. Nice, that's our next game. Nice hosting le FC Nantes Atlantique. Nice against Nantes on Saturday. Nice won 2-1. A goal by Dante at the 27th minute and Kefren Thuram, Lilian Thuram's son, at the 62nd minute. Nantes, who scored on penalty just before the halftime by Louza. The game started with the controversial red card at the 3rd minute for Girotto, the Brazilian defender of Nantes. He basically clears the ball, and while he clears the ball, his foot sort of lands on Traoré's ankle, and it looks like his studs land on Traoré's ankle. So it's kind of like the worst thing about VAR, I think, is that sometimes it takes off the intention of the game. Girotto by no means was trying to tackle or challenge. He just cleared the ball, and then his cleats ended up on the other player's ankle. So it's very unfortunate that it happened, but I don't think it deserved a red card. Anyway, it was a red card, and he was sent off, and he gave Nice a very good advantage. I mean, they end up the game with 73% of possession. Lucky for Nantes, they are not very, I guess, dangerous up front right now. Nice, 19 shots, 8 on target. Nantes only had 11 shots and only 1 on target, and that was the goal, the penalty by Luza. So yeah, Nice would definitely feel lucky about that red card early on for Nantes. It made their job a little bit easier. That said, they just weren't able to kill the match, and when they score early on by Dante, they have opportunities to actually put a second goal on, and they don't. And then Nantes, they had half chances, and then got that penalty thanks to VAR. So maybe their feeling about VAR during that game went both ways: the red for Girotto, but also the penalty obtained and then transformed by Luza. The second half was sort of the same as the first half, domination by Nice, and Nice not able to score more than what they basically did. Thuram scored a nice goal at the 70th minute, like I was saying, but they could have scored at the 62nd minute, but they could have scored 3 or 4 more. Dolberg seemed a shadow of himself, seemed that lack a bit of confidence. A couple of opportunities in the first half, a couple in the second half, just not able to put them in. And Guiri had a couple of chances as well, but look, it's only 2-1. I think Vieira is quite contested, even by his own fans in Nice. It looks like the player sort of lack a bit of intensity offensively, and they don't really seem to be troubled by it. And I think from what the pundits and the fans says, Vieira just seemed to be lacking a little bit of experience or a little bit of tactical knowledge to be able to bring this Nice team to the next level, which is what they're supposed to go now that Ineos took over. They're supposed to get to that next step, and they're already playing the Europa League this season, so we'll see how he's going to be able to manage Europa League and Ligue 1 all together. As far as Nantes goes, that loss sort of comes to highlight the structural issues that are happening in Nantes. The football philosophy of Nantes, who was praised for so long, has really eroded in the last 10 years, and their identity is slowly disappearing. And I think against Nice, they can have that excuse that they were down 10 men for almost the whole of the game, but they didn't offer much when they had the ball, and it's something that's surprising for a team like Nantes. Only a couple of sort of fast transition. Gourcuff, the coach, he was supposed to be able to bring football back to Nantes. His ideals are supposed to be close to Nantes' ideals, but I think the context is a little bit too complicated. The academy seems to be in shambles, and not a lot of young players coming up, so whether it's Gourcuff's fault or the president's fault, I don't want to judge from the outside, but there's definitely something not going well in Nantes right now, and they are with 5 points in 6 games. They are right now 16th on the ladder, and with 13 points in the whole year of 2020, they're actually the lowest tally of any team that has played Ligue 1 both before and after the COVID break. Next games for both teams: Nice will be hosting St-Etienne, and Nantes will be hosting Brest after the international break. Next game on was Montpellier hosting Nimes, the derby of the south. Both teams separated by only a few dozens of kilometers, and always a very feisty game between those two teams. A few players have gone from one club to the other. The latest one and the most famous one, maybe TJ Savanier, who's having a great season in Montpellier right now. The game was won by Nimes 1-0. Ripart scored at the 84th minute, and it was a very, very, very even game. Montpellier with 12 shots, only 2 on target. Nimes with 8 shots, only 1 on target, and that was the goal, and a 52% possession for Montpellier. Nimes started the game well and was dangerous in the first 5 minutes, but then Montpellier started playing and I guess forced Nimes to drop a little bit lower. Nimes with their usual, maybe it's called 4-3-3, but it really looks like a 4-1-4-1, really caused problem to Nimes, to Montpellier, excuse me, and just find a way to just block Savanier, Delors and Laborde from developing an offensive game that was very pleasant in the first 5 games for Montpellier. Montpellier and Nimes, when they play against each other, like I say, it's quite feisty, I guess, a lot of little niggling touches and contact that are on the edge, but besides that, some great performances, specifically by Andres Cubas, the defensive midfielder for Nimes. I talked about him already in a previous podcast. Just his vision, his ability to put himself in the right position at all time, the anticipation, his leadership. You can say he's placing everyone on the field. He's definitely had a very, very solid game altogether, and the only time or two that Montpellier was able to go past him, they were dangerous, but it really didn't happen too much. It actually really closed down less Savanier and Ferry and Le Talec and prevented them from going up front. There was a very, very, very strong display by Andres Cubas, which forced Montpellier to basically try and take it to the wings to try and be dangerous, but even there, Nimes was quite solid. Laborde and Delors just was not found in good position to be able to be dangerous like they've been dangerous before. I mean, we've seen still some good things coming up by Delors, who could have scored, but Rennes was really solid on his line. But both teams worked really, really hard, at least in the first half, and he gave us a very good game. The second half maybe a little bit less intense, but as KG, and then a counter attack at the 84th minute, and Ripard was able to score that much needed goal for Nimes. And Nimes was very, very stoked before that game and very ready to go into that game and to do something special, because when Nimes wins yesterday, against Montpellier, it's their first win in that derby in the top tier of French football since 1992, so 28 years without getting that precious win against their rivals. Definitely made them happy. The next games for both teams, Montpellier will be going to Monaco after the break, and Nimes will be hosting PSG for what promises to be a very interesting game at the Stade Les Costières. Alright, next was Metz hosting Lorient au Stade Saint-Symphorien. Metz with a 3-1 win against Lorient, 3 goals by Ibrahima Niane, 43rd minute on penalty, 60th and 63rd minute, when Lorient actually were the first one to score at the 36th minute by Amel. The position was for Metz 57%, and shot-wise, Metz shot 16 times and 8 on target, and Lorient shot 10 times, 4 on target. Both teams before the game had one victory, 1 draw and 3 losses, so they both really needed points today, and both on different momentums. Lorient did not win since game 1 against Lens, and Metz actually got their 4 points in the last 2 games. So I think this game followed the logic of momentum, with Metz taking all 3 points. Lorient were the first dangerous. Under Pellissier, they play some pretty football. They're just having a hard time making it happen, I guess, in the last 30 meters. They deserve to score at the 36th minute. They have a couple of opportunities before. You could see that they like to play football, and they did well, but I think they just faced a great Niane, right? Ibrahim Niane, who's slowly becoming a young little favorite of the Ligue 1. He did everything himself. The penalty kick at the 43rd minute comes from him. He dribbles into the box, gets fouled, and then makes sure that he puts him in the back of the net himself. And then when the second half comes, the goal at the 60th minute is all him finding himself in the middle of 4 defenders outside the box, shooting from long range and put it in. And at the 63rd minute, his ability to actually dive in the near post to get that cross and put a header through was great for Ibrahim Niane. I think his value is definitely going up in that first half and in that first beginning of the season, excuse me. And I don't think he's going to leave tomorrow for the Mercato, but I think if he keeps going that way, whether it's in January or at the end of the season, he's going to bring some nice money to Metz. Mind you, the only reason why Nian is playing right now is because Habib Diallo, who was the best scorer for Metz last season, is still absent, not playing, supposedly on his way out, but man, there's only 24 hours left, even less so, and he's still not gone. So we'll see where that's going to bring them. As far as Lorient goes, like I said, good football. They're really creating well. I think the absence of Gerbic was probably an issue today because he's been strong earlier on the season and now he's injured. Amel scored early, but then they were just like, I think a little bit too exposed defensively in that Ligue 1 early on, and that's probably something that I need to work on. They thought getting Morel was enough experience to make it happen, but I think Pellissier has a bit of work on his hand to make sure that they can get some results and stay in Ligue 1. Metz next week, or after the break, will go to Angers, and Lorient will go to Reims for 2 games that sort of already sound like the games that are going to help those teams staying in Ligue 1. Next game up, Bordeaux against Dijon, 3-0 for Bordeaux. 3 goals at home finally. The goals from Houdin at the 12th minute, Kalou at the 29th, and Tomas Pasic, the Czech, at the 89th minute. Dijon, who was the only team with Reims who hadn't won before the game and still hasn't won after the game, and Dijon, who will be at the bottom of the ladder for the international break. The game was 50-50 in possession, so Dijon didn't play that bad, but 17 shot, 7 on target for Bordeaux, only 5 shot and only 1 on target for Dijon. And if you've seen Bordeaux play before, you know that they're not the most dominating team, so Dijon definitely struggling this season. They've lost their goalkeeper Alfred Gomis, who signed for Rennes, so they signed Alakbe from Niort this week, and he was already starting against Bordeaux this weekend. On the first goal, the free kick by Houdin, the ball is a bit on him. I think he's surprised, but he let it slip between his gloves. Not the best start after 12 minutes in Ligue 1 for Alakbe, but after that he's shown some good strength. Bordeaux obviously hadn't scored home yet. We talked about it last week on the pod. 3 home game and 3-0-0, which was history in Ligue 1 for Bordeaux. But this time they really pushed, and I think they win. They were up 2-0 at halftime, but if Josh Maja had been a little bit more confident, it could have been 3 or 4. Dijon actually tried to come back in the second half and were probably the more dangerous during the second half, and in the last 5 minutes really put everything they could up front, just struggling to find that last link between the midfield and the forwards, and struggling to put player in the best position. They left, obviously, as you would when you were trying to push. They left themselves open to counter-attack, and on one of the very last counter-attack at the 89th minute, Zerkan, who had taken a red card on the very first game for Bordeaux and was back with Otavio being suspended. Zerkan led the counter-attack, shot, a good save by Alakba, the Dijon keeper, but he went straight to Basic, who put it in. Bordeaux, at the end of the day, controlled the game. Once you're up 2-0, you can just hold and wait for the other team to leave it open for you, and they did that well, and it's a deserved win for Jean-Louis Gasset and his player, an important win as well after that series of was two draws and 1 loss in the last 3 games. After the break, Bordeaux, big challenge, going to Stade Vélodrome, playing against Marseille, while Dijon will be hosting Rennes, the duel between the team who's at the bottom of the table and the bottom of the top. The team at the top at the table going to be a tough game for Dijon. Next up is Brest against Monaco, and a very interesting win there for Brest. A goal by Fèvre at the 8th minute. 7 shots for Brest, only 5 on target. Monaco 72% possession. The game was sort of theirs. 21 shot, but only 2 on target, and I think that tells the story of the game, really. They did hit the crossbar once, but basically, Brest scoring this early with Fèvre did did what you would do in this occasion. They scored early and they just parked the bus, stayed behind, wait for Monaco to come up and try and proceed in counter-attack. Monaco, interestingly, who started with a trio up front of Ben Yedder, Voland again, but this time with Getson Martin. But those three players, again, just don't have yet the complementarity that you would want them to have to be able to be dangerous up front. And if anything, the most dangerous player of Monaco in that first half was the young midfielder Diop, who could have scored in a couple of occasions. Great shots from long range. In the second half, Monaco pushed a little bit more, and Jovetic, who just entered and replaced Ben Yedder and took the armband. In the meantime, I don't know if he was meant to, but his header went onto the crossbar, and Monaco were never able to break the deadlock with Badashile. Had the last chance, the young centre-back who scored a couple of goals already, but put his shot wide. I think what we've seen is a good demonstration by Brest of what they're able to do. They're a team that were on two wins in the last 3 games, so now it's 3 wins in the last 4 games, and with 9 points, they're where you would expect them to be, I think. Monaco, who's been alternating the hot and cold, I guess, win-loss in the last 4 games, are just showing that it's still a team that's building. Niko Kovac hasn't quite yet made it with his fundamentals, the ideas that we were talking about last week, where he's trying to make every player get everybody involved and everyone should play and everyone should follow the plan. I think some players quite don't have it yet, and the lack of intensity up front today was a little bit too obvious from Ben Yedder, Voland, and Getson Martin, and maybe it's playing against a team that plays heavily defense. That was a bit hard for Monaco, but we expect more from the club of the Principality. After the break, Brest will go to Nantes for a nice little Brittany derby, and Monaco will host Montpellier in the south of France matchup. Next game on, Strasbourg was hosting Lille. Lille very little against Strasbourg. 3-0 win at La Meno. Selic at the 21st minute. What a goal from Selic. Sanchez at the 54th minute, and Yilmaz at the 67th minute. Lille with 55% of the possession, so Strasbourg really didn't suffer heavy domination. Strasbourg with 15 shots and only 3 on target, and Lille with 12 shots, 6 of them on target. Lille still unbeaten this season. Lille and Rennes, the 2 only teams that haven't lost this season, and Lille was actually coming back to Rennes right now on top of the ladder, both of them with 14 points, 4 win and 2 draw so far. Strasbourg, who is struggling, Strasbourg who have lost 5 games and won 1 since the beginning of the season, and already the second worst defense of the league with 13 goals against them, but I think more worryingly, only 4 goals scored, which is better only than Dijon. The goal by Lille are beautiful. Selic's goal, the shot from long range, is great. Sanchez, served by Jonathan David, needed to shoot twice to put it in, but it was nicely done. I think what we saw was really Strasbourg struggling to put a team that can basically fight against the level of Lille, right? They're playing in the midfield sometimes lacks a little bit of imagination, lacks a little bit of creativity, and defensively against a team strong like Lille, they just struggle to clear the ball for real. A bit too much of playing around, I think, in their own box. Yilmaz, the goal that he scored was a great show of strength in the middle of the box. He could have fallen in a penalty kick, I'm sure, but he decided to keep playing and put the ball past Camara. I think they could have scored 1 or 2 more. Lille, Ikone couldn't make it 4, and Sanchez basically missed the unmissable at the last minute by himself in front of the goals. He put it up there, just like blazed it up, just like Sterling had done against Lyon in that Champions League quarterfinal. Lille are league leaders, and I think they deserve it. We've discussed how great a team they're becoming. I think it's very good for their confidence that they kept a clean sheet in Strasbourg, and that they were able to score 3 goals before the international break, when they come back from the international break, a game against Nantes, but also the Europa League starting, which will be something that will be quite challenging, I think, for Lille being able to play on all the competitions like this. Strasbourg will be hosting Lyon after the break, which will be, I think, complicated for the players of Lameno, who used to be that fortress that was almost impossible to take, and that's been leaking a little bit too much in 2020, I think, for the liking of the Alsatian club. Next up, and sort of last game of the day, Rennes against Reims. The game finished 2-2. The goals for Rennes: Rafinha at the 24th, Da Silva at the 37th. Reims had started it with Abdelhamid at the 11th and Boulaïdja at the 66th minute. Rennes with 73% of possession, 19 shots, 3 on targets and 2 goals. And Reims with 9 shots and 4 on target. Rennes still undefeated, and Reims still hasn't won this season. So Rennes sat with 2 points and Rennes with 14. I think Rennes would have fancied winning that one, and they're the one who started the game the right way, but they were surprised on basically the first dangerous occasion for Reims, which was a set piece that Captain Abdelhamid scored with a header. After that, Rennes really pushed up, and Rafinha, who's announced away from Rennes and potentially going to England this season, we'll know more tomorrow during our pod, scored the first goal. He could have scored a goal early on with a nice little bicycle, but he waited to combine with Garcia. Garcia's work right up front again deserves so much praise. Again, a great game by the Angers transfer. Garcia and Rafinha combined in the box, and Garcia offered the goal to Rafinha to equalize at the 24th minute. 10 minutes later, it was Da Silva on corner kick who put it in. Reims unfortunately lost Rajkovic on injury at halftime. Rajkovic didn't come back on the pitch, and the young Diouf took his place between the posts. Reims, from the beginning of the second half, because they were down 2-1, actually tried to push a little bit, and Rennes, I guess uncharacteristically, showed a lack of inspiration in the midfield and up front. Reims was rewarded at the 66th minute with Boulaïdja scoring his third goal this season. He was linked with an Olympique de Marseille move at one point. I think in the future he's going to be a player like Ibrahim Agnan, who's going to go to a bigger club and who potentially will do good things. Reims actually kept pushing even after the equalizer and tried to steal the game from Rennes, who only waited for the last 5 minutes to actually wake up and do something. But Diouf, the young keeper from Reims, saved the team when Da Silva almost scored a brace, and then at the very end, Enzo's header unfortunately fell on the crossbar, which left the game 2-2. Reims on top of the ladder with Lille, as I said, and Reims unfortunately all the way at the bottom. It's hard to say Rennes and Reims. Complicated to say, those two games playing against each other. After the break, Rennes will go to Dijon for a game that they'll fancy winning again a few days before they actually go into the Champions League, the first time in their history that Rennes will play in the Champions League. And Reims will be hosting Lorient in Champagne after that international break. A quick word about Lyon and Marseille. Obviously, we talked about it at length with Sam on the Farmers Focus, but yeah, just a reminder, 1-1, the goals, Payet and Aouar on penalty, 67% possession for Lyon. I think Lyon will be disappointed that they were unable to bring that one in. 48 crosses and 24 shots, but only 3 on target, and Marseille scoring on their only shot on target. I think something that's maybe important is that Lyon needs to find a way to play better football, needs to find a way to play more efficient football up front. They need to find a way to score goals, whether it's just a matter of confidence or not finding the right link up in the last 20 meters, maybe a bit of both. I think this needs to happen for them, and then they'll be able to, like I said during the focus, they'll be able to make it to the top 5 or the top 3 at the end of the season. They have the players for it. They should be able to do it. Marseille, it looks a little bit like, we didn't talk about Marseille much, it looks a little bit like Marseille is embracing that idea of becoming and I was talking about it with other Marseille fans on Twitter, embracing that idea of being. It was a great example by my mate. The new Atletico Madrid, or like what Lyon did against Manchester City and against Juventus in the Champions League, which is that team that defends really well and is trying to be lethal up front. Atletico Madrid based their whole game plan on that for a while. And it's not the prettiest football, and I think Marseille fans are a bit frustrated if that's how you want to play. But at the end of the day, if it gets you the result and if it gets you where you want to be, it's a good idea to make it happen that way. Obviously, to do it properly, playing with 11 players and the whole game would help. Payet getting a red card against Lyon after 50 minutes definitely didn't help Marseille this morning or last night. But I think Marseille playing this way will have a chance at staying in the podium and going to the third place, because they'll be able to resist the Lille, the Rennes, the Lyon, the Paris Saint-Germain, and maybe they'll have a chance at getting out of the UEFA Champions League groups and making it to the round of 16, resisting to Porto and Manchester City playing that way. But we're going to need to see a totally different team in the other games, the games against the Strasbourg and the game against the Lorient and the Reims of this world. So it's going to be interesting to see how they develop against the team, against who they are supposed to actually keep the ball in feet. And Thauvin did say before the game against Lyon that the team is maybe more comfortable when they don't have to actually make it happen themselves and when they can counter. But I think Marseille fans would like to see something else from their player, and rightfully so. After the international break, Lyon will be playing in Strasbourg and Marseille will be hosting Bordeaux. Just a reminder as well that Marseille would actually not be too unhappy with getting 9 points after their first game, if you take into consideration that there's only one loss and they played Lille, St-Etienne, Paris Saint-Germain and Lyon in the first 6 games. They're about to play a bit more of a friendly period of the calendar right now, which coincidentally happened when they're going to also play the Champions League. Alright, well that's about it for today's podcast. Obviously it was a little bit long with a great farmers focus with Sam, the Lyon supporter, early on, almost an hour of it. We're really glad if you listen to it all. Feel free to hit us up on Twitter, either Sam or myself, to tell us your feedback and your comments. The farmers market was not approached today, like I said, it was not discussed today, sorry, like I said, because we're going to do a full pod tomorrow or the day after just about the Mercato. So much has happened in Ligue 1 in that summer window that I really want to be able to touch every team, and it'll probably be a good hour-long podcast to be able to talk about all this. Thank you again for being here. Farmers Corners FC, the French football podcast with the accent. Love being there. Anybody who is keen to participate and want to give me some input, I'm more than happy to have people with me, like you saw with Sam. Thanks again for following, and I'll let you know when the second podcast is dropped this week. Have a good one, everyone.